In the sprawling metropolis of Metropolis, where skyscrapers kiss the heavens and shadows linger with both danger and intrigue, you'd expect Superman to hog the spotlight. Yet, nestled in this urban jungle is an ordinary man with extraordinary adventures. Jimmy Olsen. Stick with me, the timeline here gets a little funky. In Action Comics number 6, we glimpse an unnamed office boy kicking around the Daily Star, the Golden Age precursor to the Daily Planet. Just part of the set dressing, right? Fast forward 2 years, and the Superman radio show realized kids needed a relatable character. Enter Jimmy Olsen, Superman's best pal and plucky photojournalist.
Who are you anyway? Where do you come from?
I have no name. I come from a world that no longer exists. Here in this world of yours, men would call me a Superman.
DC Editorial saw how much children loved this character and thought, hey, what if that kid in Action Comics number 6 was Jimmy all along? Jimmy's adventures as a photojournalist at the Daily Star thrust him into the heart of Metropolis's most thrilling stories. With a camera slung around his neck and an insatiable curiosity in his adorkable heart, Jimmy often landed in precarious situations, but always came through with quick thinking and unwavering determination. Today, we're exploring the life and times of Jimmy Olsen, Superman's best pal and continual trouble magnet. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you enjoy this video, give it a like. And if you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and subscribe. To the newbies, welcome. And to the oldies, welcome back. Let's talk about DC Comics. So, as with our usual proceedings, let me clarify that there are 4 different versions of Jimmy Olsen, starting with the original iteration on Earth 2. This version of the iconically Ginger James actually wasn't Ginger until later appearances when they changed it for synergy with other iterations. Jimmy started out as a cub reporter for the Daily Star and made best buds with the ever-present Clark Kent. What makes Jimmy truly remarkable is his status as the quintessential everyman in a universe populated by the most astounding beings. Unlike Superman, he possesses no superhuman abilities. Unlike Batman, he has no arsenal of high-tech gadgets or rigorous training. Jimmy's greatest strength lies in his unyielding courage and unshakable belief in doing what's right. He represents the idea that heroism isn't confined to those with capes and superpowers. It resides in the hearts of ordinary people who choose to act in extraordinary ways. As time pressed on, and Jimmy grew into an adult, he became a full-fledged reporter, not a photojournalist. A shutterbug this Jimmy was not. But he ascended the ranks, shoulder to shoulder with Clark and Lois, and eventually made managing editor for the publisher before hitting what was really the only big snag of his life: cancer. Of course, it's a comic book universe, and he's in the realm of the Golden Age Superman, so he eventually gets some medical help. In this case specifically by Superman pulling in the later Silver Age Jimmy Olsen of Earth 1 to help with some reparative surgery. Beyond that, this Jimmy's fate isn't known. So how about we circle on over to that more youthful doppelganger of his? Alright, here's where Jimmy Olsen gets the big upgrade. He's explained to have essentially raised himself following the apparent death of his parents, which, yeah, it's a comic book, so his dad's alive, big reveal. So he starts out as Jimmy Olsen, cub reporter for the Daily Planet, but he quickly gets a far more desirable moniker: Superman's pal. I mean, who doesn't want to be Superman's pal? The two become thick as thieves, and Supes gives Jimmy a signal watch. If Jimmy's ever especially in over his head, which is often, he can just activate that watch, our favorite Man of Steel will hear it, and leap into action. This is also an era defined by some of the weirdest stuff you'll ever see in paperback, so sometimes Jimmy just goes on Archie Andrews level dates with Lois Lane's sister, Lucy, but other times Jimmy regularly gets his own superpowers or monstrous transformations. These transformations serve a dual purpose. On one hand, they inject a sense of whimsy and unpredictability into his stories, ensuring that Jimmy's adventures are never mundane. On the other hand, they underscore his adaptability and resilience. No matter how strange or dire the situation, Jimmy always manages to find his way back to normalcy, often with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. He also becomes a master of disguise, which is never as convincing as they play it off as. But over time, Jimmy gets more and more capable and confident, calling out for an 11th hour rescue less frequently, and eventually becoming a standout member of the Daily Planet in his own right. Jimmy's Everyman persona allows readers to see the DC Universe through his eyes, grounding the fantastical elements in a relatable reality. His interactions with Superman, Lois Lane, and other iconic characters highlight his unique position as both an insider and an outsider. He's close enough to the action to be part of the story, yet distant enough to provide a fresh perspective. Though the Crisis on Infinite Earths, of course, nixed this reality on the whole, a flash-forward story revealed that Jimmy would go on to become the owner of the Daily Planet and have a big ol' happy family, including 2 children named Clark and Lois. So, thankfully, Jimmy Olsen isn't a character that needed a ton of work to fit into the new continuity of the 80s. Nobody says Cub Reporter anymore, so his initial junior title was changed to Intern. He also crafted that signal watch himself, which is a nice way to give Jimmy a little more personal accomplishment. Personality-wise, this Jimmy was a bit more actively ambitious, crossing over into arrogant at times. His relationship with his family would also be a bit different. Born and raised in Yonkers, Jimmy's dad, Jake, was declared MIA during a military mission in Southeast Asia, meaning his mother, Sarah, was viciously protective of him. Jimmy has plenty of character moments, sure, but none quite reach the height or cultural relevance of his days as Superman's pal, so there isn't much to tell, frankly, aside from the handful of times he transforms into, again, a hero or a monster, but with the added cheek of it all being a nostalgic throwback to his Silver Age endeavors. Let's make our way over to the latest version of our good buddy on Prime Earth. This version of the Olsen clan gets yet another rewrite. Jimmy is the eldest of 3 kids, joined by his brother Julian and sister Janie. His parents are actually related to the Luther family and, on brand, are absurdly rich. Jimmy gets into photojournalism, moves to Metropolis, and his parents even take care of the rent for him. But then, his parents are reported dead under mysterious circumstances that still seems to be a dangling thread yet to be pulled. And to Jimmy, it's all a bit too suspicious, especially considering the utter absence of their remains. In his mind, there's every chance that his mommy and daddy might just crawl out of the woodwork one day, and they're such lovely people that they might just go ahead and sue him if they felt like their fortune had been mishandled. Then, Jimmy gets that title back, Superman's pal, and he's on his wacky adventures yet again, back to his happy-go-lucky self, marrying a gorilla, getting turned into a turtle. The 50s camp is back, and every second of it is a treat. Roll the clock forward, and Jimmy experiences 2 major life events that I want to end on. First, he meets and falls in love with Siobhan Smythe, the supervillain Silver Banshee who's mid-redemption arc. It's honestly absurdly cute, and you gotta root for DC's biggest nerd falling for the goth gal. Second, due to those now ever-present comic book hijinks, Jimmy Olsen is actually the new publisher at the Daily Planet. Now that's a promotion. The narrative of Jimmy Olsen's relationship with Superman is one of the most enduring and endearing aspects of his character. Their dynamic is more than just hero and sidekick, it's a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and trust. Superman's unwavering faith in Jimmy's abilities speaks volumes about the latter's character. Despite lacking superpowers, Jimmy is consistently portrayed as a reliable and resourceful ally, proving that heroism is not measured by strength alone. Moreover, Jimmy's bond with Lois Lane adds another layer of depth to his character. As colleagues and friends, their interactions are a blend of camaraderie and sibling-like rivalry. Lois's fierce determination and journalistic prowess often serve as both a source of inspiration and a challenge for Jimmy, pushing him to strive for excellence. Now, I wanted to see what I could do to get some insight into Jimmy Olsen. Possessing the weird passion I have for graphic lit, I swung for the fences and reached out to Eisner Award winner Matt Fraction, who wrote the 2020 series of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. I still can't believe I'm about to say this, but he replied. I asked him what it is that makes Jimmy Olsen special, and what he considers to make up a quintessential Jimmy. Now, if I was a professional, I'd give you all a very poignant excerpt, but considering this is my first ever direct quote from an author, I'm gonna just give you his full response verbatim. I thought about this a lot. I mean, a lot. It was the thing that propelled me to write the book in the first place. This fundamental question of why him? And the answer were these qualities make him not just worthy of being Superman's pal. Their qualities Superman himself, being a guy who isn't from around here, would seek to emulate and grow within himself. I think he has to look at Jimmy and see a human he wants to emulate. So to me, and everyone's mileage may vary, and that's fine, Jimmy's quintessential qualities are guilelessness. He's never deceitful or cynical. He could certainly behave to deceive, and frequently does so in service of some higher and righteous cause, or be mistrusting. How could he not, having seen and done what he's seen and done? But he himself, at his core, isn't ever either of those things. He'd never consciously hurt anyone or screw them over. He'd never put his own wants over someone else's needs. He radiates a kind of compassion for the world and everyone in it, even if they don't deserve it. Curiosity. Specifically, a curiosity about other people. There's something almost Pee Wee Herman-esque about him in the way he can genuinely have interest, compassion, empathy, and fascination with literally everyone he meets. In some ways, it's the best part of being a man-child. He's like a wide-eyed, open-hearted kindergartner that doesn't know some people may not have his best interests at heart. I think more than anything else that drives him, and more or less always has. Jimmy may be Superman's pal, but everyone is Jimmy's pal. Loyalty. To his friends, to his ideals. He might be useless at it, but Jimmy would be the first person to show up at your house on a Saturday to help you move a couch. He remembers everybody's names everywhere. He's the kind of person that remembers birthdays, that knows you're allergic to shellfish, and knows the name of your sister's husband and that he broke his foot in Taekwondo last spring and hopes he's getting around okay. I think if loyalty is how we show someone they matter to us, Jimmy is loyal to the whole world. Except Lex Luthor. Bravery. I tried to get at this a few times in the book I did with Steve and Nate, but Jimmy's the guy that jumps into the mouth of a lion because someone needs a picture taken from the inside of a lion's mouth. Whether it's in his professional life or personal life, Jimmy makes leaps, takes chances, always, all the time, constantly. Physically, emotionally, you name it. Now, that bravery might lead him into danger and cowardice, but it's never venal or petty or for lack of trying. Jimmy gets into messes with the best of intentions, and that requires bravery. And help. But mostly bravery. Shapeshifting. I tried to get at this too in the book, and I think it's the ultimate unknowable within Jimmy, most especially to Jimmy himself. This is gonna sound nuts, but I thought a lot about a photograph that Michael Collins took of the Earth from the Apollo 11 orbiter while Armstrong and Aldrin were on the moon. He wrote in his journal something to the effect of, "Everyone that's ever lived or died is in this photograph except me." There's a reason Collins was chosen to be the guy in the orbiter. There's a reason they picked him to be the man to disappear around the dark side of the moon. I thought about that photo a lot writing Jimmy, thinking about that psychology. And Bugs Bunny. I thought a lot about Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny, the super rabbit, the rabbit of tomorrow.
What's up, Doc?
Anyway, maybe Jimmy's a guy that maybe not so much isn't comfortable in his own skin, but isn't necessarily locked into the idea that his skin is really where he belongs. It was interesting to me psychologically that Jimmy shows the world what he sees, transforming himself in the process in ways great and small, external and internal, but the Jimmy we think of usually has a camera in front of his face, obscuring him. He's funny, inherently, without trying. I mean, he's funny when he tries too, but he's funny without trying, and he's funny because of all the above qualities. He's a cross between Studs Terkel and Johnny Knoxville, and Michael Collins, and Bugs Bunny. Dubious taste in girlfriends. Enough said. And he's sartorial. Jimmy's a guy that has an ironclad security in his sense of fashion and dresses fearlessly, and that ties into the shapeshifting somehow too. It's another costume or something. Something to that effect. Anyway. I said it to him already, but I'll take another chance to say thank you to Matt Fraction for the detailed insight and for taking the time to respond. I don't think anyone else could have summarized it better. Jimmy Olsen's legacy extends beyond the pages of comic books. His character has been immortalized in various media, from animated series to live-action television shows and films. Each adaptation brings its own interpretation, yet the core essence of Jimmy, a courageous, quick-witted, and good-hearted journalist, remains intact. As we celebrate the legacy of Jimmy Olsen, we're reminded that even in a world of superheroes, there is always room for the everyday hero. Through his lens, wink wink, we see the world in all its complexity and wonder, proving that sometimes all it takes to change the world is a camera, a keen eye, and an indomitable spirit. And that's where we'll leave our story for now. If you really enjoyed the video, hopefully enough to have left a like and subscribed, you'll be happy to know that we also have a video available here on Lois Lane, the bigger half of the Daily Planet duo. Thanks for sticking with us. I'll see you in the next one.